It's time for toy photography news. That's right, cheesy voice. Well, hello there, everybody. I'm Photo Dave. This is Toypixx, and in today's video, the return of toy photography news. So, let me tell you how this is going to break down. First off, I'm just going to talk about figures from the past week that we have all the information for, because I don't want to speculate. I don't want to show like quick teaser images. I don't want to talk about that because that makes it so that in the second part, I can put a scorecard in for each figure. So you're going to see the figure, you're going to see a couple pictures about them, you're going to see what they come with, and then I'm going to use that information in 7 categories to rate whether or not I think they're photogenic figures. Now, you know that I'm insanely picky and all that good stuff if you've been watching the channel for a while. I want figures that are complete out of the box. I want the articulation that's perfectly smooth. I want to pull a figure out and just be able to start snapping right away without any kind of customizing because, frankly, I'm lazy. So those 7 categories are sculpt, paint, does it have extra heads, or does it have extra hands, does it have accessories, does it have pretty good articulation, and does it have natural movement? Now, I wanted to say what natural movement is if you are articulating the figure, does it break up the sculpt? Or is there only like maybe a 90-degree bend at a joint? Because that would mean there's no natural movement. So now with all that out of the way, before we go any further, remember that I'll make sure to have product links to everything I talk about in the video description below. Several of those will be affiliate links, so if you click on them and you choose to buy something through them, it helps out the channel. I appreciate it. And most of them will be Amazon and Entertainment Earth links, so you might even save some money. That's a good thing. And if you are shopping on Entertainment Earth, remember to use the code Toypixx for all in-stock items because that'll make it so you save 10%. And if you spend $39 or more with that code, you'll also get free domestic shipping. But if you just do the pre-orders that I'm showing on here, make sure that if you spend $39 or more, you just type free ship 39 in the code on Entertainment Earth, and that also will get you free shipping. Whoo! With all that said, I am adding one more thing at the end of this video, and this is where it's exciting for me. I put out a thing on Twitter and on Instagram and said, I want you to send me a photo that you're really proud of that I can put at the end of this week's toy photography news. So at the end of the video, you're going to see photos that people submitted. Pretty stoked about that. And as for you, if you're really happy with some photos you've put together, send them to me on DM them. Yeah, DM them through Instagram or Twitter. And I'll put them up at the end of next week's toy photography news. Good times. Just have them to me by Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. Now, with all that out of the way, let's get to toy photography news. Let's kick everything off with the DC Multiverse Titans wave and Arsenal. Now, just looking at Arsenal here, I'm not a big fan of the sculpt. It looks like with a few figures in this wave, what McFarlane Toys did was just stretch everything below the neck, so it's just longer than it needs to be. Sometimes looking at Arsenal here, his legs are a little long. If you took off his head, then the body would look much closer, but his head's just too tiny, and that just makes everything look stretched. One thing that McFarlane Toys doesn't do that I feel like Legends does, and then there's the vice versa, Legends gets the big picture closer to right. Their proportions aren't perfect, but they get the big picture, the overall figure, closer to right. McFarlane does the small details much better than Legends. So there's that. And right here, I think the small details and the look of the figure, I just like a lot of the sculpting, but they just didn't quite nail the big picture. So the sculpt, nothing. Paint, I'll give it to them. It looks like there's paint where it should be, all that. There's no extra heads, there's no extra hands, there's accessories, there's articulation that should work if all goes according to plan, which should lead to natural movement. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the very first figure on this new kind of toy photography news. There's your scorecard. Now, let's move over to Donna Troy. Now, checking out Donna Troy here, I think she probably has the best proportions in this wave. They're not perfect, her legs are probably a little longer than they should be, but overall, I think the proportions on her are pretty good, so I'm going to give it to them when it comes to sculpt. The paint, I think that she's got color where color needs to happen, so I'm good there. I'm not too picky on paint, I don't need to worry about washes or anything. When you take pictures of this stuff, you kind of rely on shadow more than artificial shadow created by washes, so I don't worry about that so much. There are no extra heads, there are no extra hands, but she's got her killer sword. Then there's articulation. I think her articulation's going to be really good. I wish that they cut the diaper above the belt. Now, don't I'm not using diaper disparagingly. Basically, Mafex uses diapers as well. They just seem to cut it better than McFarlane Toys does. And once that happens, I think that she will indeed have some natural movement. So Donna Troy looking pretty good. I do have to say, when it comes to the accessories, I am not counting the card and the stand. I think those just need to go, but that's personally me. That's a photographer just who likes to pose and take pictures and doesn't really want to stand in a photo. So there's that. Now, after Donna Troy, we've got Nightwing. And I have to say, I feel like Nightwing is, I don't know, it's like he's really bulky in his chest area, all that, his chest, his torso, it's good and bulky, but then his legs and his arms are noodles. His arms in some shots look pretty short. I don't know. I don't like the proportioning on Nightwing at all. So I give him nothing in sculpt. He does have color where color needs to be. No extra heads, no extra hands, no accessories, which is nuts. And then there's articulation. And that articulation, if they cut down on the diaper, I really wish they'd get that a little more dialed in, should lead to some natural type movement. But Nightwing is the lowest in this wave with a 3 out of 7 on the photography scorecard. And that takes us to Raven. Raven is one of those other figures that looks like she was basically just stretched out. Her torso is close. It's not too bad proportionally. It's a little longer than it should be, but where things get nuts are down at her legs. Her thighs are almost as tall as her torso. So proportionally, I can't give it to him as far as sculpt is concerned. So nothing there. Paint, though, the colors look great. It looks like they're where they need to be. I'm happy with that. There's no extra heads. There's no extra hands. Accessories, she has her little things going on, like her energy effects, which are crazy. I don't think of Raven as having energy effects, but it looks good, and she does have to use her old chant-type spell stuff, so maybe that's perfect. The articulation on Raven, I think, is going to be really good. It looks like they cut the diaper where it needs to be cut, and generally the articulation's pretty good on McFarlane stuff as long as the torso works. So we'll see, but I think that should be pretty good. I think that should lead to some natural movement. Raven is 4 out of 7, and that takes us to our man Beast Boy, or our boy Beast Boy. And I gotta say, I think the sculpt is good. I think the paint's good. No extra heads, no extra hands, no accessories. The articulation should be good. One thing that I wish they'd do on him, I wish they'd cut the diaper down a little bit where the red line is. I wish they'd basically just cut from the bottom of that red line up, and I think his articulation would be really good, should lead to some natural movement. But one thing, one detail that drives me a little crazy here with Beast Boy is when I looked up this uniform, the red triangle on his chest, or the red, arrow kind of pointy, you know what I'm saying, that part there, it goes to the edge of the shirt. So I feel like where they sculpted that extra white where the shoulders should be, I feel like the shoulders should just lead into that without that white, or at the very least, that should be green. It looks wrong to me. But overall, I think Beast Boy looks pretty good. And ladies and gentlemen, that's the Titans wave. Whew! Okay, now, on to the next part. Now, we're looking at the Indiana Jones Adventure series from Hasbro, and they solicited 2 figures this week where we saw everything. Good stuff. First, we have the Indiana Jones figure from the map room from Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I have to say, I think this is probably the best Harrison Ford likeness for the Indy figures that they've got going. He still has those single jointed elbows, makes me sad, but what are you going to do? So, I give him this good score on sculpt. I mean, he's got good sculpt going on. He's got good paint going on. He's got a little bit of weathering on the cloak that he's wearing there. No extra heads, no extra hands. He's got accessories though. I'm good with the accessories. That's why there's several pictures here showing him with all those accessories. The articulation, like I said, I'm giving it to him, but because he has only the 90-degree bend, I can't give him the natural movement, and he ends up at 4 out of 7. Now we're looking at Cosm. Cosm comes with 3 guns here that all look really good. And I'm just kind of stoked about this guy. I think he's pretty alright. One thing, though, that I wish they'd get better with the Adventure series, I feel like you can't have an Indiana Jones line if you can't get the likenesses right. And so most Indiana Jones figures haven't had great likenesses. Cosm here, if you watch the movie, if you watch Last Crusade, he doesn't really, his likeness isn't quite right. He looks older than he should look. So that kind of bums me out. But when you're looking at him, he still has the sculpt, he still has the paint, he has no extra heads, no extra hands, he's got those accessories, he's got decent articulation, but again, he's hampered by the 90-degree stuff, which means no natural movement, giving Cosm a 4 out of 7. Now, we're going to check out a couple figures I found from Kyoto on Big Bad Toy Store. First up, we have the Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind Takea style KT-037 Dorok Soldier. Yep, I likely butchered that, but this thing is rad. He moves like mad. He's got crazy paint. He's got the hands. He's got the knives, swords. Okay, just swords. But checking him out, the articulation on this thing's phenomenal. He's got little balls at the elbows that help it so it looks like it's going to move past 90 degrees. So I feel like that's going to add to natural movement. I just love discovering stuff like this. So from a sculpt perspective, this is a pretty incredible sculpt. I don't think anybody can argue that. Same with the paint. There are no extra heads. I mean, yeah, so no point there. He does have extra hands. Obviously, he has accessories. The articulation's going to be crazy. And again, the natural movement is going to be beautiful on this thing, which gives him a score of 6 out of 7. Now, the next one I found that is a Kyoto figure is from the same line. We have the Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind Takea style KT-038 Dorok Soldier. And this guy is like the last one. He just looks phenomenal. I love finding this stuff. He's got, it looks like pretty close to the same mold. Nothing too crazy here. I couldn't tell you for sure. I can't be 100%, but he looks great. He even has the same weapons, it looks like. Yeah, he's rad. I mean, just basically different colors. Looks like a different head, maybe. Maybe not. Maybe not even a different head. I think we're looking at a repaint. Either way, same score, same stuff. Great sculpt, great paint, no heads, extra hands, accessories, articulation, leading to natural movement. Now, we have a line that is near and dear to my heart, ladies and gentlemen. We have this month's Mafex solicitation, starting with the T2 Endoskeleton. Now, I gotta be honest, I've only seen Terminator. I've never seen Terminator 2, so I might need to check that out. I don't know what all he should come with, but I think the figure itself looks absolutely incredible. That is one shiny piece of beautifully articulated plastic. So, just looking at him, I have to give him the sculpt, I have to give him the paint. I can't give him extra heads or hands, but obviously he's got the gun, so he's got accessories. He's going to have incredible articulation because, again, Mafex, which should lead to whatever natural movement would be for a robot. I think those are objective things. I don't think anybody can argue that. one thing that I've got here, I have extra heads down here as being a nick against him, same with hands. I'm not sure he really needs either of those just because, like I say, I haven't seen T2. So let me know in the comments. Like right now I've got him marked as 5 out of 7, but maybe you'll look and say, he's pretty much perfect. And if that's the case, hey, game on. I still think he looks cool. Now, next up, we have the Dark Knight Returns Batman on a horse. And I have to say, looking at him, he looks great. The Dark Knight Returns figures, I don't get them just because I like to stay in the main DC continuity. So I don't really mess with things that are kind of multiverse type stuff, all that. So I stay out of that. But this still looks incredible. Ooh, for DC, it would be Elseworlds. That's the word I was trying to come up with. And Batman just looks great. He's got a great sculpt. Everybody loves this figure. He's got great paint. He even has a little torso piece where it's kind of bloodied up. I didn't put this picture on here because, again, sick and trying to get this stuff to happen. But he's got extra heads. He's got extra hands. He's got accessories. He's got the great articulation leading to the natural movement. So he's a 7 out of 7. But I have to say, the horse itself, being just a statue, to me is disappointing. Even though if he were articulated, he would add to cost, I just wouldn't be a big fan of that. And I don't think, subjectively, well, maybe objectively, I don't think Batman ever showed up looking like this with the big yellow emblem in the black suit in Dark Knight Returns. So basically, you've got an inaccurate Batman on a horse that can't move when a lot of other companies have made horses in the 1/12 scale. So take that for what you will. Either way, the Batman looks cool. I just don't know that he's necessarily accurate. Moving on to ThreeZero DLX with their Iron Spider from the Infinity Saga. This thing is beautiful. If I were into MCU characters, I would probably pick this up. I'm not, so it saves my wallet, but if you're into MCU characters, I'm guessing you're pretty much going to have to get this thing. Spidey comes with his Waldos, he comes with all kinds of eye accessories that you can use, he comes with tons of hands, comes with web effects. It's ThreeZero, so we know he's going to be beautiful, he's going to work great, he has a stand. So when it came to scorecard time, I gave him a 7 out of 7. He's got great sculpt, he's going to have great paint, he's got extra heads. Well, extra eyes, but I thought that kind of counted, so I gave him the point for the extra heads. Then he's got extra hands, he's got accessories, he's got crazy articulation because, again, ThreeZero, and that's all going to lead into natural movement. So yeah, I guess the one thing any of us could argue on this one would be the extra heads, but again, with all those different eye parts, I think it counts. But let me know in the comments if you think I'm wrong and you think maybe this Spidey should only get a 6 out of 7. Now we move on to Diamond Select Toys Sue Storm, and I gotta say, she looks incredible. I gave her the point on the sculpt, I gave her the point on the paint, but when we're looking at her, she has no extra heads, she has no extra hands, she does have accessories. I love what they did as far as making it so you can swap out the lower arms and the legs, so you can give her that invisible effect. I love the little invisible shield almost forming around her feet. I think it looks great, but because she has no waist anything and it looks like her elbows only bend about 90, I couldn't give her an articulation score, which of course meant that there's no natural movement. So Sue here only got a 3 out of 7. I still think she looks incredible, and so if those other things aren't priorities for you, you don't need to worry about it. But as far as photogenic figures, when it comes to yours truly, she just doesn't cut it, but she does look awfully good. And now, for a couple other figures I found on Big Bad Toy Store. First up, we have the Forging Soul AGS 36 Assassination Squad Commander Yuling 1/12 scale figure. And yes, because I'm not on camera right now, I totally cheated and read that off the website. That's from Toys Comic and Mechanic Toys. And just look at this thing. This is the kind of stuff I love discovering. He's got a little robot dog. He's a robot with all kinds of massive, crazy accessories. It's nuts what all he comes with. He obviously can move. So when it came time for the scorecard, I had to give him a 7 out of 7. He's got great sculpt, the paint's beautiful, he's got extra heads, he's got extra hands, he's got accessories, obviously, he's got crazy articulation, which leads into, well, natural robot movement, and I think the dog probably has all that stuff too. This thing is just simply ridiculous and very, very cool. Next up is the Forging Soul AGS-36 Assassination Squad Signaler Vulture 112 scale figure, also from Toys Comic and Mechanic Toys. Same company that did the last one, and this thing is magnificent. I don't know what else to say when it comes to these. These are the kinds of things that are just, it's like they're little art pieces. They are that cool. Look at all the stuff this guy comes with. We got bazookas, missiles, he's got hands. It's frankly ridiculous what all you're getting for these guys. So, again, with this guy, I had no choice but to give him a 7 out of 7. Great sculpt, great paint, extra heads, extra hands, accessories, articulation, natural movement. 7 out of 7. This thing's wonderful. Now, we have the Super7 Thundercats that were announced this week, and I'm going to be honest, they all get a 5 out of 7. Where they miss for me when it comes to pretty much anything Super 7 is in the articulation, which means there's really no natural movement. Everything has a 90-degree bend. The waist, most of the time, tends to be a bit of a twist, kind of a waist cut, although I have seen that they've been making them so they're more ball-jointed, at least a few recently. So I'm kind of geeked about that, but you can never argue with the sculpt, the paint, the extra heads, the extra hands, the accessories. Super 7 definitely decks these guys out, and so when we're looking here, we've got Alluro with all that stuff. I don't know enough to be knowledgeable about a lot of this, but then we've got Captain Shiner. Weird. But yeah, he's got all kinds of good stuff. I don't know. I love those heads though. They're just crazy. I don't remember this guy at all from Thundercats. For some reason, Thundercats just didn't make the impression on me that it did a lot of people. I do enjoy that he comes with the crossed arms here, just because it's kind of like Super 7 saying, hey, yeah, we know that we don't articulate that well, but here, have these. Although I think that's pretty tricky for even characters that do have good articulation. We've got Hachiman with all kinds of cool stuff here. I really like his helmet. I have to say, that's really cool. So, again, don't know much, but he's got a spinning blade. That's also pretty nice. And then, of course, we've got Wily Kit. I do remember her. Now we just need Wily Cat, and I believe that all the main cast will be announced. I'm not sure. I don't know my Thundercats, like I say, but I think that'd be alright. The one thing here, when it comes to Wily Kit, she has even less articulation than everybody else. I still had to give her the 5 out of 7, just depends on how important all that is to you, but to me, she would be kind of a disappointment when it comes to photographing. I really like just pulling figures out, having all the having all the accessories, having all the options laid out in front of me, having great articulation so I don't need to mess with it. I can just pull it out of the box, take pictures, have fun. This one doesn't quite get it done. She, to me, is a little worse than the others, but at that size, I can't falter too much. And now we have JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Lisa Lisa. I don't know anything about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I know I looked up Lisa Lisa and it looks like her proportions are definitely off, but when I looked her up and I looked at the images, she kind of looks like the proportions are right. So I guess I can't throw down about that. One thing I notice here is she's got ridiculous accessories, including one hand that holds up like a little medal and then another hand that holds on to her sunglasses. I think that's just a really cool touch. And she's got crazy articulation from images I saw. So Lisa Lisa is another 7 out of 7. Great sculpt, great paint. She's got extra heads or kind of extra faceplates, expressions, but I'm counting them. Extra hands. She's got accessories like mad. She's got articulation. And, well, obviously she has articulation, but her articulation leads into natural movement, and I just thought this was another one to bring up because even though I don't know anything about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, this is just a cool, crazy looking, nutty figure that, well, looks a lot more normal than most of what I see from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Those figures are bizarre. Now let's get into some Four Horsemen with a figure obscura Headless Horseman Spectral Green Special Edition. Again, reading that because I'm not on camera. This thing is awesome, but you're listening to somebody who really regrets missing out on the original version. I think this looks incredible, but I have to say, I really would love to get my hands on that original version. I just need to save up a little bit so I can pull it off, along with my SH Figuart Star Wars obsession. But the reason I really love the first one, I'm totally all Halloween, man. That just was total Halloween, just spooky and great. This one, though, I'm not taking anything away from it. I love the green, spectral, ecto, whatever. I don't even know my Ghostbusters term, which makes me a bad dude. But anyway, I think it looks incredible. I love the horse's eye. I love the hooves. And when it comes to the scorecard, I had to give it everything but natural movement, only because Four Horsemen stuff just doesn't bend more than 90 degrees. Doesn't mean that I don't think these are incredible, but for the perfect photogenic figures, I just can't give it to it. But if Four Horsemen ever decide, hey, let's add a little more bend to this stuff, man, it's going to be hard to pass any of their stuff because it all looks so good. Something else the Four Horsemen put out is the Figura Obscura Green-Robed Father Christmas. And this guy looks pretty cool as well. I don't regret missing out on the Santa Claus so much, only because I dig Christmas, I really like it, but Halloween is my holiday, so that's why the Headless Horseman was the one where I missed out on that, and I'm like, oh, that sucks. But you can't say that this doesn't look like an incredible figure. Comes loaded with accessories. He's obviously just a repaint of the original Father Christmas, but he just looks incredible. I don't know much about the lore of Christmas. Mine is the Coca-Cola Santa, but this one just looks so good. And so when it came to everything, I ended up giving him a 5 out of 7. The sculpt's there, the paint is obviously there, the extra head is obviously there. He doesn't come with extra hands, but I don't know that he needs them, so the subjectivity, I don't know. I had to say he didn't come with them, but maybe it doesn't matter. Just not sure. Obviously, like I said, loaded with accessories. He's got pretty good articulation. It's just those 90-degree elbows that throw me off. Still. Four Horsemen, man. They put together some pretty figures. Moving into the crazy spooky from the Four Horsemen is the Blue Hagnon. I don't even know what to say about this thing. It's ridiculous. I look at him. He is just translucent blue. Looks incredible. I love the weapons he comes with. He's pretty light on a lot of stuff, though, so I couldn't give him tons when it came to the points. But I think he's better than what the scorecard reflects. That's subjective, of course, but objectively, I think the sculpt's great. I think the paint's great. Like, the look of the figure itself is great. I don't know how much paint he actually has, but the paint on the weapons, I'm counting it. No extra heads, no extra hands. The accessories, like I say, they're gorgeous. The articulation is good, but again, we have 90-degree bend at the elbows, and man, yeah, it's a pretty figure. And finally, from the Four Horsemen is Elijah Lou? I said Lou, didn't I? Anyway, of the Elven Elite Guard. Obviously, I butchered that name, but there's no butchering how great this figure looks, and it has a score to reflect that. When I look at this thing, the detail, it's ridiculous. I mean, I love getting to look at all this stuff and just seeing how cool it is. So when it comes to the scorecard, gave it great sculpt, gave it great paint. It's got 3 heads, which is why I have the scorecard picture just like this. No extra hands that I could see, but yeah, I don't know if it's holding stuff. And I don't know the Four Horsemen stuff. Maybe it should have fists. Maybe it should have open hands. I'm just not sure, but man, it looks so good. Sometimes looking at these things, you're like, well, maybe it's photogenic, even though it doesn't necessarily have tons of accessories or whatever. Although this one, it's got accessories, it's got articulation, it just doesn't have the natural movement, again, because of the 90-degree bend at the elbows. But man, they are pretty figures that those four horsemen folks design, and I'm probably gonna end up having to get one sometime soon. And now we're closing it out with Marvel Legends, and we're starting with Adam Warlock from the Guardians of the Galaxy wave, and I have to say, just not very impressed with this thing. I don't know, I mean, I can't say anything about the design. They probably nailed it, because they do great work when it comes to the look of their movie figures, but just looking at them, I went to the scorecard, the sculpt's there, I think the paint looks pretty good, I don't see where there's color that could be added. Again, I'm not a wash guy, but there's no extra heads, there's no extra hands, there's no accessories. The articulation's there, but there's nothing at the waist, and because there's nothing at the waist at all, if you were to twist his diaphragm joint, you're totally breaking up the sculpt. Drives me crazy, which of course means there is no natural movement. Adam Warlock gets a 3 out of 7. Woo, poor guy. Then we get to Drax, and I have to say, I think Drax looks pretty good. Not disappointed at all with the look of the figure itself, but when we get to the accessories, he's light on all that. So we check out his scorecard, we get a sculpt, we get paint, we're pretty good with that. No extra heads, no extra hands. He's got the knife, so I technically have to give him points for the accessories. He's got the articulation, but because he likely has the waist twist, just because of looking at him how he's designed right now, right there, and because I do believe I saw a picture where he was using the waist twist, he doesn't have natural movement. But he beats out Adam Warlock with a 4 out of 7. Next up, we have Groot, the muscle, the hulking Groot. And I think he looks pretty good. But let's forget what I think. Let's just end up going right to the scorecard. But first, hang on. Let's look at those accessories, because he does actually have some. I kind of geeked about that. So, the sculpt is there. I didn't give him any points on paint, and here's why. There's hardly any paint, and the paint that is there looks like it's kind of just haphazardly replied. It doesn't look like there was any rhyme or reason of why the paint was put where it was, so I didn't give him anything there. No extra heads. He does have extra hands, which is a good thing. He's got accessories when it comes to that little raccoon and the wings, although maybe the wing should be part of him, but anyway, the raccoon, I'm still counting it. The articulation, I think he's got enough, and when it comes to natural movement, how's a tree supposed to move? So I'm going to give Groot here the benefit of the doubt. I know there's no real waist thing, but that abdomen or that diaphragm is cut low enough where it can probably fudge it a little bit. So really, I think Groot comes out on top of this with a 5 out of 7. Looks pretty good. Then we move on to our boy Kraglin, and I have to say, the sculpt is wonderful. He has the knife, he has the little whistling arrow, very good stuff. I do enjoy the look of Kraglin here, although not having an extra head, you kind of think of Kraglin as being less serious and a little more goofy, so when I got to the scorecard for him, the sculpt's there, I think the paint's there, no need for more color, no extra head, no extra hands. He's got the accessories, like I mentioned earlier, and he's going to have articulation, but he's another one that has nothing at the waist, so when he bends at the diaphragm, he's going to break up the sculpt, so natural movement is a goose egg. So with Kraglin, we get a 4 out of 7. Moving on to Mantis, she looks great. I can't fault the way she looks, but when you look at her accessories, she's got nothing. And no, I'm not counting the Cosmo parts. That's, they're Build-A-Figures. They're supposed to have that kind of stuff. And yeah, Mantis is just really disappointing, I think. So when we get to the scorecard for her, I give her the sculpt. I give her the paint. But she has no heads, no hands, no accessories, nothing extra anyway. She's got articulation, but because of the way that Legends tends to move its women, I'm not giving her any natural movement. I don't think she's going to have anything at the waist. Now, if I'm wrong, that would be awesome. That would move her up to a 4 out of 7 because, Well, if she had one of those ball jointed waists, you could get great movement. You could make her twist without really breaking up the sculpt. It would look good, but right now, as it is, looking at this, I'm guessing we're looking at no natural movement or waist articulation. And then we're on to Nebula, who looks to be pretty much the same sculpt as Mantis with different hands, and one arm is different, head's obviously different. But she comes with more stuff. I think she's pretty cool. I actually really like the look of her. I like the head sculpt. You can see here she's got accessories. So if we just move on to the scorecard, I gave her the sculpt. I gave her the paint. There are no extra heads, no extra hands. Obviously, like we saw in the previous picture, she's got accessories. But I got her down as, I messed that up. The articulation should be checked, but there's going to be no natural movement. So she still gets a 4 out of 7, but just switch that dot around. What was I thinking? Anyway, there's Mantis. Now we've got Rocket. And I think you have to make exceptions for Rocket because he's a tiny figure who looks really well articulated for being a tiny figure. So I'm going to go and be nice to Rocket here. He's got that gun and obviously basically all of Cosmo. I'm going to agree with everybody who says it should have just been a Rocket Cosmo 2-pack with Groot as the Build-A-Figure, but I think this way, from the business perspective, they can make more money selling Groot as an individual figure than they could selling Rocket and Cosmo in a 2-pack. So I think that's might be what happened there now. So when we get to the scorecard for Rocket, I'm giving him sculpt, I'm giving him paint, obviously no extra heads and no extra hands. But I don't know that he really needs extra hands just because of how small he is. Still, it would be nice to have a little more of a grip, it looks like. So, anyway, that's being a little more subjective. No extra hands, but maybe he doesn't need them. I don't know. I'm all over the place on thinking that. He's got the gun, so I gave him the check on accessories. He's got articulation. I'm giving it to him, and I'm even giving him natural movement just because he's such a small figure. The fact that they were able to put all that articulation in there, I'm pretty impressed with that. I think that's pretty cool. And now, that brings us to Pete, the good Mr. Quill, the Star-Lord. Come on, Star-Lord, man. Anyway, checking him out. He looks good. I think that's the best Chris Pratt head sculpt I've seen from any company. That looks like him. It looks great. But we get to hear his accessories are his 2 blasters. That's it. And that makes me sad. So we get to the scorecard. I'm giving him sculpt. I'm giving him paint. No extra heads, no extra hands. He's got his blasters for accessories. He's got articulation. But because the movement is likely to be a waist twist, it's not natural, and we're ending on Peter Quill with a 4 out of 7. Okay, we're not actually ending on Quill. I figured I have to show off Cosmo since I showed off Beast Boy earlier, and Cosmo looks great, if I'm honest. He looks like he's going to be able to move really well, move like a dog. I mean, you look at all those points of articulation, I think he's probably pretty cool. I don't think he's Build-A-Figure worthy, but that's more subjectivity, so take that, make it go away, because this is news, this is ultra serious. But yeah, I think he's going to move great. I mean, he's going to have that G.I. Joe animal style going on there, just looking good. I'm pretty impressed with what the team did there. So when it came to the scorecard, I gave him great sculpt, gave him great paint. Obviously, no extra head. I'm not too bothered by that, but your mileage may vary. No extra hands or paws, as it were. But again, I don't think you could really give an animal extra paws, especially a dog this size. No accessories, but what does he need? So this is where I had to just say he doesn't have these things, but does it really matter? I'm not sure. Articulation, I think he's going to have it. And for a dog, I think he's going to have natural movement. So Cosmo, even though he only gets a 4 out of 7, I think he scores pretty well. He and Groot, and possibly Rocket, I think he and Groot are probably the winners of this. It's just a shame you have to get everybody to make him happen. And now, we're going to end the whole news segment, and it's time to listen to my final thoughts. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the first toy photography news that's, well, done in this format. So let me know what you thought about the format in the comments below, and even more, let me know what you think of as photogenic figures. Or are there categories I missed? Or are there too many categories? There's all kinds of things you could answer down there. You could even bring up whether or not you plan on getting any of the figures I talked about in the video. Now remember to stay tuned. Check out everybody's work at the end of the video because there's some really phenomenal photos there. I'm pretty excited to be able to present these people to you. So, thanks again for watching, and until next time, have fun and happy snapping. See ya.